She fell into the gorilla enclosure. He held her for 51 minutes. Her name was Mary. She was 4 years old. She had been climbing the visitor barrier at the regional zoo on a Tuesday in late summer, the way 4-year-olds climb things, and her mother had been holding her younger brother and reaching to stop her with one free hand. The barrier was 18 inches higher than the safety code now recommends. The drop on the other side was 22 feet. She fell at 11:47 a.m. The silverback in the lowland gorilla habitat was named Mwezi. He was 26 years old. He weighed 440 pounds. He had been at the zoo since he was 3, and the 4 humans who cared for him most closely had spent the better part of their adult lives in his presence. He had a daughter of his own in the adjacent enclosure. He had never been violent with a human. He had also never had a human child placed in his world without permission before. The crowd at the railing made the sound a crowd makes when something terrible has happened. The mother above the enclosure made a sound that was not quite a word. Mwezi was on the far side of the habitat, sitting near the artificial rock wall, eating a piece of romaine. He looked up. He stood up. He crossed the enclosure floor in a way that the people watching would later describe as deliberate, and the people who knew him would describe as careful. He arrived at the small body before any of the other gorillas in the enclosure. What he did next is a matter of zoo record and grainy video, and the testimony of 3 keepers who watched it through binoculars from the observation deck. He did not pick her up the way a parent picks up a child. He did not pick her up at all at first. He crouched. He examined her without touching. He put his nose 2 inches from her face. He held that position for almost a minute. She was unconscious. Her left arm was bent in a way that suggested it was broken in 2 places. She had a laceration above her left eye that was bleeding into her hair. Mwezi straightened. He looked toward the small structure where the keepers usually entered. Then he picked her up, not under the arms, not over the shoulder. He cradled her, the way the keepers had seen him cradle his own daughter when she was very young, with one massive forearm beneath her back and the other hand supporting her head. He walked her slowly across the enclosure floor to a position 15 feet from the keeper entrance, and he sat down. He held her there for 51 minutes. If you stay for stories about what animals notice before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The other gorillas in the habitat approached twice. Both times Mwezi made a low sound and they retreated. A juvenile female tried to peer at the child from a distance, and Mwezi turned his shoulder to block her line of sight. He did not look at the railing where the crowd was. He looked down at her face. The keeper team had been called within 3 minutes of the fall. The protocol for situations like this is complex. Tranquilizers were considered, and the dart would startle him, and a 400-pound silverback collapsing on a 4-year-old was a worse outcome than the situation already was. They evacuated the enclosure of all other gorillas slowly, one at a time, through the side door. Mwezi did not move. He held her. A keeper named Vesna Halmazlin entered the enclosure at 12:38 p.m. with a small bottle of water and a piece of cantaloupe. She had known Mwezi for 19 years. She walked toward him without looking at him directly. She crouched 10 feet away. She placed the cantaloupe on the ground. Mwezi looked at her. He looked at the cantaloupe. He looked at the child. He stood up, slowly, with the body of a child still in the cradle of his arms, and walked the 15 feet to where Vesna was crouched. He placed Mireille on the ground in front of Vesna. He stepped back. He sat down. He did not pick up the cantaloupe. He watched Vesna lift the child. Has your animal ever done something you couldn't explain until it was the only thing that did? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. Mireille was airlifted to the regional children's hospital with a broken left arm, a mild concussion, and a laceration that required 11 stitches above her left eye. She regained consciousness in the helicopter. She did not remember the fall. She did not remember the Silverback. The neurologist who examined her, a man named Dr. Pedro Cosentino, would say in an interview the following week that the absence of additional injury was almost statistically impossible. He used the word almost twice. She was discharged in 3 days. Her mother, who would not look at any video of the incident for almost a year, eventually wrote a letter to the zoo. The letter was short. The last sentence is the one the keepers kept. It said, "He knew which side of the railing she belonged on." Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who weighed 440 pounds and ate romaine. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Mwezi lived for another 11 years. The zoo retired him from public viewing the following month. He spent his last years in a quieter habitat with his daughter and an older female he had grown up with. The visitor barrier at the original enclosure was raised 48 inches the same week. The piece of cantaloupe was eaten an hour after Vesna left. Tomorrow there's another one, about a tabby who refused to let a mother put her baby down in a particular spot of the nursery for 9 straight nights.